Good morning to Professor Ahuja, dignitaries on the dais, professors, deans, students, everybody present here. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me and my friend Taha over here to share our experiences, to share our life experiences of what as an individual with blindness or disability can share with you. So today what we are going to talk about, both of us, is going to be not problems, because we all know about problems. We're going to talk about solutions. We're going to talk about how to do things rather than just comment on these are the problems. When we talk about education, which is the cornerstone to success to any individual, we need to understand that education starts right from the birth of that individual. You don't need to go to a school to be educated. Your parents start with education. When a child is born with disability, which is a known disability, which is a visual disability, visual in the sense you can see that disability. It could be blindness, the child is not able to hear and respond to sounds, or it could be a physical disability, limb or something else. The parents will start working towards a solution if they are aware of it. But we must also understand that there are invisible disabilities also. So today when we are going to give solutions, we are going to talk about both visible and invisible disabilities, especially in the education sector. Let me talk about the visually impaired first, because coming from the sector, having expertise in the sector, having experience of living a life with visual impairment, probably I can comment best on this sector. I have been involved in this sector for the last 39 years. As my name suggests, I have a doctorate, but not as a PhD holder. I have done my physiotherapy, and because of physiotherapy, I put the title doctor over there. I completed my physiotherapy way back in 1986. And then had the fortune of being one of the first blind physiotherapists in India to start his own practice. Now when we applaud this, there's a lot of background to it. If I could do it, why not others can do it? So there are factors, and that is why I told you this. When a person succeeds in life, it's not only the system, but it's the family, the society, the environment. Everything has to gel together in the favor of this individual. Then he can succeed. So fortunately, in my case, I never went to a blind school. Because generally when we see a blind person, the first impression that we have is he must go to a blind school. Now in today's age, the special schools, especially for single disabilities like vision impairment or hearing impairment or learning disability, do not make much of a sense. Because you're isolating that person, putting into an environment which is specially catered for him for 10, 12 years of his life, and then bringing him out again, and then expect him to succeed in a general society like the Bodoland University. Now, if I would have studied exclusively in a blind school, read only Braille as a blind person, and then when I complete 10th or 12th from that school, And then when I come to a general university like Bodoland, how will I read? Because I don't know how to read normal text, I can't see. If I write something in Braille, how will my professors read that? That means I have to be dependent on somebody else to read and write for me. Now when I am going to be dependent on others to do simple tasks like reading and writing for me, how will I progress in life? I can't. And this is one of the fundamental challenges that we are seeing today. Accommodation is the word that Professor Ahuja used, Professor Shivram used. Accommodation means providing the right assistance required by the individual to overcome his or her disability. In case of visual impairment, what is the accommodation? The accommodation is technology. Now you might feel technology is expensive. No. I am talking about the same technology that all of you are carrying in your pockets, your smartphones. Today, your smartphone is one of the most affordable, accessible, and readily available pieces of technology which can help not just the blind, they can also help low vision, learning disabled, those with dexterity issues of their hand, like one hand is missing or some fingers are missing, they can use the phone with one hand, individuals with cerebral palsy who have normal intellect. So we are talking about at least 60 to 70% of the population with disabilities who can be accommodated just by using different applications on a regular smartphone. For example, when it comes to reading, what traditionally blind used to do, as I said earlier, was read Braille. Now Braille is not available everywhere. I don't think there will be even a single page written in Braille in Bodoland University. Not possible. Because it's difficult, it's a separate medium, and you cannot create a separate world for persons with disability. You have to include them in the mainstream society. So what you need to do is not expect the rest of the society to learn Braille, but you must insist that the visually impaired learns to read and write using technology so that whatever he reads and whatever he writes, everybody else can read. Because if I type on a smartphone, if I send a message to Dr. Ahuja, he will be able to read it. If Dr. Ahuja types a message and sends it back to me, I will be able to read that same message using the text-to-speech capability on my smartphone. It's a very simple thing, but because you're hearing things for the first time, you might be amazed. But this text-to-speech facility is there in all your phones. What is not happening is we are not aware of it. We as professors, head of departments, deans, registrars and vice chancellors are not expected to know everything about disability. And that is why generally what happens when you encounter a person with disability, the charity model steps in. When you think about that person as a bechara, then you're not looking at his ability, you are only looking at his inability, as Dr. Ahuja said. The moment you start looking at the ability of the person, suddenly you will realize that he does all that you do, but slightly differently. For example, I said, when I hear a message, it's the text-to-speech facility on my phone which is going to read it out to me. And I'm pretty sure most of you might not have heard about text-to-speech. It can read any digitally written word in most of our languages. It does not support Bodo, but it does support Assami, Manipuri, it does support Bengali, Odia, especially the East Indian languages I'm talking about. Definitely it supports many other Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, all the 4 South Indian languages, and most of the major international languages. So if anything is written digitally means if somebody has typed it, it could be a PDF document, it could be a Word document, it could be an HTML file, it could be the internet. I will be able to access that document using this technology. Now with this background information, let's go back to the school level. So today, if we start admitting our young blind children into a regular school, what will happen is, if the child does not know how to use technology and the teacher in the regular school does not know how to handle this child, there will be a barrier, there will be a gap. So to accommodate this child, we suggest that this child should start using smartphones as early as any other child would do who might not have any disabilities. For example, you have children in all your homes. Tell me one child that you sat down and taught him how to use a smartphone. Nobody does that. The child observes the parents, even at age 2, he will start looking at the parent and he will start opening his nursery rhyme or whatever YouTube, and he will start listening to it. You don't teach that child, okay, kid, do this, do that. No, you don't do that. Similarly, if we give that opportunity to the blind child or the child with low vision, if we magnify the font on the screen, if we make that large so that the child can use his vision, or for a learning disabled child, if we can highlight the text which is being read on the phone. There are different methods of doing it. I won't go into the technical details today. This little child will also start using the phone like any other child. They can writing for the blind child, for example. Attach a normal USB keyboard, a normal keyboard that you connect with your desktop. Attach that to your phone using an OTG. It's a solution which will only cost you about 400 rupees. 350 for the keyboard, 50 rupees or 75 rupees for the OTG. That means now you have converted your smartphone into a mini laptop. What is the advantage? The advantage is now the child can be taught typing like any other person. I type myself. Taha types himself. We both use laptops. Yesterday on my way from the Guwahati airport to here, I was constantly working on my laptop in the car. I was sending emails, I was writing reports, I was doing everything like any other person that would be doing that. How is that possible? Because when you type, again the text-to-speech technology will speak to you. It will tell you what it is writing. Right now I am wearing these headphones. I am not hearing it. I can hear everything normally. But this is connected to my phone, so any message on my phone is being read to me by the text-to-speech. The same principle applies on my laptop. So when you teach a sighted child A, B, C, D by holding his hand and writing A, B, C, similarly, you will teach this little child to type A, B, C, D right from the beginning. That means the child is now ready for inclusion in any regular institution just by using a smartphone and a keyboard. Now when this child grows older, there will be subjects like maths and science. methods, there are different ways of teaching the same concept to the blind child also, because some of the concepts are abstract, right? You can't touch the stars in the moon to show this child how a star looks like, or you can't show him a mountain, because he should get the idea that this is the river, this is at a lower level, the mountain is up, the water flows from top to down. These are concepts that the child learns by seeing. If you don't see that, you need to devise simple mechanisms, and we call them tactile learning materials. You learn by touch. You feel and you understand. There are models. You touch the model and you make the child understand the concept of science, concept of light. If you don't see light, how to understand light? So there are light meters, photometers, and you can conduct experiments and show the child the light beam is coming from here, going through the prism, is being reflected, refracted, whatever is the principle. You can show it to the child. It's possible. People are doing it. Unfortunately, our special schools are yet to advance to that level. Our special schools have not grown, they're still continuing with their traditional methods, and that is where the gap lies. So this is what we need to change. Once this changes, once the child learns to read and write independently, he will not require a scribe, a writer, to write his exams. And that is fundamentally our aim. Because once you get rid of that scribe, you're independent in that basic requirement towards employment. You look at any employment that a blind person can do. It will require him to read and write. It could be in a government job, it could be in a bank, it could be in railways, it could be in a private corporate. A blind person is not going to drive a car, obviously. He's not going to do any work externally. So his jobs would be mainly in an office environment, if he is educated. Now to make him work in an office environment, obviously he has to read and write independently. And how is he going to do that? Using technology. Where does this technology come from? He learns right at the school level. So when that happens, the child now gets options, career options. Not every child is now going to go into arts, as it happens for all blind students. Now, students can take commerce, they can take science, and then different career options open. There are more than 183 different job roles that a totally blind person can do today. 183. But as professors, as deans, when we counsel our students, and if it happens to be a blind student, we only tell you, go and do a government job. Why? Because there are seats reserved over there. Why not corporates? There's so many jobs open in corporates. There's so many opportunities in corporate jobs. Unfortunately, we don't have the skilled manpower to provide to the corporates. Why don't we have it? Again, the reason comes back to the blind schools, because they're still working in that traditional way and not offering the technology to the schools. Now let's move to the hearing impaired. A similar situation happens with those who are completely deaf. They only rely on sign language. Deaf schools still today do not believe in providing textual understanding to their students. They prefer, like Braille in a blind school, sign language in a deaf school. Exclusive medium. Once the child comes out of the deaf school, nobody understands sign language. And that is one of the reasons why, in spite of being able to see, he has got good hands and feet, everything is normal, he just can't hear, he cannot communicate. Once he cannot communicate, he cannot work. So unless we address these fundamental challenges in our education system and start looking backwards, we need to introspect. Why are we not able to create employable youth? We are educating them, no problems. But this education is not leading to employment because they don't have the skill sets to be employed. We have the rules, we have the regulations, we have the guidelines. Unfortunately, we don't have the mindset. And the mindset takes time to change. I'm so happy that I'm invited here to speak to all of you because you are the future. As professors, as heads of departments, you are going to create that future, I should say. And if you are aware of what lies ahead as options and opportunities for this individual, then you will be able to give that person that vision. Unless you have that vision, the students cannot have that vision. As Professor Sivaram said, when we met in the morning, even he was not aware of these solutions. If a dean at a CIT is not aware of solutions, I don't expect others to be. Because this is a very niche field, a very specialized field. We need to be reaching out to organizations and institutions who have developed all this technology. By meaning developed means we have compiled all these tools. We have not developed Android phone, we have not developed text-to-speech. We just have used that mechanism which was already there to empower our students. Coming back to my profession, which will give you a good idea. So I started as a physiotherapist, started my clinic as I said, but in 2001 there was an earthquake in Gujarat, if somebody remembers that. Very big earthquake. A lot of people got injured, a lot of people got spinal cord injuries, and I was chosen to be the chief rehab coordinator in a disaster area, leading a team of 13 blind physiotherapists in a disaster area, providing rehabilitation to people in a disaster area. This was completely unheard of. Imagine when able-bodied people are leaving that area, we were serving people in that area, living in tents because most of the buildings had collapsed. I'm not saying because we achieved something, no. The reason behind saying this is, I wanted to just highlight that we as individuals, when you see the ability, can do this. If people have just seen our inability, oh, you can't see, you can't go to the disaster area, then we would not have been able to serve so many people. As the chief rehab coordinator, I had the fortune of helping 109 spinal cord injured women. Because the earthquake happened at about 9:30 in the morning. Most of the men were out. It was Republic Day, I remember. And it was only the women who were there in the house, mainly, who got crushed and had permanent spinal cord injuries and had to be rehabilitated into wheelchairs, etc. So I had that fortune of changing their lives for the better. But if people would only have seen my inability, imagine. So in 2010, fortunately, unfortunately, I moved out of physiotherapy active practice and started NGO management. In 2010, I was the CEO for a very old organization in Pune. I'm based out of Ahmedabad. Sorry, I didn't tell you that. So I moved to Pune. Took up the charge of this very old, very large organization called Pune Blind Men's Association and converted it from a very traditional vocational training center for the blind where they only taught them making candles and paper bags into a modern training facility where people are taught so that they can earn from their vocational skills. This center, even today, runs courses like accessibility testing, web management, massage and naturopathy. They run courses in basic computers, teaching students to learn computers, a lot of these courses. So that's the transformation that we need to bring in to our traditional organizations. Moving from there, in 2013, I went to Delhi as the CEO for the National Association for the Blind, one of the premier organizations in India, which introduced inclusive education way back in 1987. What they did, they had a very large hostel for the blind, 250 plus students, but they did not keep them in their school. All these 250 students would go to regular schools, Kendriya Vidyalayas, DPS, Mount Carmel, all these schools, and they would be educated along with regular students in a regular classroom. They experimented this long time. Today, all these 250 students go to these classrooms using their laptops. They carry the laptops as their notebooks and writing math, and they are included in these regular schools. In fact, you will be surprised that many students from Delhi top their classes by writing their own exams compared to non-disabled students. They will be topping their classes. And that is their true knowledge. They have the skills. Blind or not, intellectually disabled. They have the right IQ. We are not giving them the opportunity. So we need to give them the right opportunity, the right accommodation. That is what I want to bring up from that little piece. In 2015, I moved on to Benetech, which is my current organization. Benetech is an international NGO. The headquarters are in the US. I started as India director because Benetech was in more than 96 countries. And in 2017, I was promoted as director of programs Asia and Africa. So today, we implement inclusive education and transformation of these traditional schools across Asia and Africa. I travel alone. I almost travel 15 to 20 days a month. And I'm constantly on the road spreading this word about inclusion, technology, and affordability in technology. As Benetech will be more than happy to partner with any organization willing to transform or open their doors to students with disability. We are specialists in creating ecosystems, inclusive colleges. We work with Ashoka University, Assistive Technology, to name a few. And we have helped them create environments which are accessible. That would include three basic pillars. One, accessible content, because a printed book obviously cannot be read by persons with blindness or even learning disabled students find printed books difficult. So we create digital copies of it. We are specialists in how to create accessible digital content. Second, choice of right devices depending upon the courses. So we advise the organization. And third and the most important is we provide training to both the teachers and the students for use of these assistive technologies. So as I said, Benetech as an organization would be more than happy to support any organization. We don't charge any fees. So please reach out as and when required. With this, I will leave the rest to Taha to take it forward because he is going to continue this theme of inclusion and from a government perspective, what has changed, what needs to be changed, and as an individual who is blind, in fact, he was announced slightly wrongly. He is the secretary to the Office of the Commissioner for Persons with Disability. He is not the Commissioner for Disabilities. Right? Taha, over to you.